Hello, Spiroula. How are you?
Hello, good. How are you?
Very good, very good. Now I'm pronouncing your name exactly as it's spelt and correctly.
Yes, that's very correct. Yes.
So
Spiroula, yep.
thank you very much for giving me a few minutes of your Friday. Okay,
Thank you
I
for having me.
understand that underneath all those quilts that are keeping you warm in the Sydney winter, that you're just about to fly off on a honeymoon.
I am. Yes, I'm going. I'm going for 9 weeks to Europe next week.
9 weeks.
9 weeks.
That's emigrating, isn't it? That's not a holiday.
Oh, it's been. Trust me, it's been a long time coming. I definitely need this time off.
How many countries are you doing?
5 countries in that time. So we're doing France, Spain, Italy, and then we're doing about 4 weeks in Greece and 2 weeks in Cyprus. So I'm obviously Greek, as you can tell from my name, and my husband is Cypriot.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's still a war in Cyprus, are they not? They've got the front line with Turkey.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's a line in the middle of the country where Turkey took half of it, but it's they're kind of still in the Greek occupied side, which is good. Yeah.
All right. I used to live in Greece once. I lived in Rhodes Island.
Beautiful.
Right. Where the Knights Templar were, where the fountain is. I stayed right there.
That's one of the islands I haven't been to actually, but I have heard great things about it. So
it's brilliant. Loads of history. It's a stunning place to be. Good people now as well. Lots of ouzo.
Yeah, that's all over Greece.
With ouzo, what I did notice with ouzo, you got anything else, like you got a whiskey or whatever, any other spirit, you put a bit of water in it, okay, and it dilutes it. It softens the blow a little bit. With ouzo, it doesn't. It's just badass. However much water you put in it, it just slaps you around a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's just like you've just made more of it. You add water, you've got more. But it's a good one. It's nice if it's nice and cold, and you're kind of in the right, crowd, nice atmosphere, like it goes down well.
Well, I noticed people having it for breakfast, to be honest with you, but
yeah. I think it's a summer thing.
No one's judging here. No one's judging.
Hey, what happens on holiday stays on holiday.
even if it lasts a quarter.
Yeah, exactly. Come back and you feel it for a bit, but memories.
Okay. Anyway, all right, we can digress a lot about this. Hopefully, by the time we finish this, the people listening to this interview will have a good understanding of who you are, what you do, what's made you, and where you're going to next. I suppose it's a bit like a loaded question, but do you want to share with us in a nutshell who you are?
Who I am? Well, I'm obviously a young Greek girl. I'm a 33-year-old Australian Greek girl with migrant parents. So I grew up in a very kind of traditional Greek household, quite strict, quite, the stuff that all young ethnic kids go through. And because of that, I guess I was very conditioned to be, the really compliant, submissive, quiet, girl. I never was really one that to go out and take risks or anything like that. When I was younger, I guess I was because got 2 siblings. One is my sister's 15 years older than me and my brother's 11 years older than me. So I grew up with, a lot of people much older than me. The only people I had my age really were my friends. But in terms of relatives, everyone was around me. So it was like I grew up with 2 sets of parents, essentially. So I guess I ended up having the tendencies of being a big people pleaser because I had so many, authoritative figures around me that I just wanted to make everyone happy and not give anyone a reason to be upset. So I kind of just went with what was expected of me. And that was essentially, my whole life, my upbringing. I never wanted to upset teachers. I never wanted to upset my family. I always did what was expected and what was the right thing to do. So I was always, a very kind of, although I was still a little bit outspoken, I've always had that kind of cheeky side to me. According to my mum, I was a massive smartass as a teenager, and I don't think I've really lost that. But I kind of was, I still was very much, like I said, a people pleaser. I just really wanted everyone to be happy, and I did everything to make other people happy, sometimes to the detriment of myself and my own happiness. So I went through school like that. I always wanted to do design. So I'm an interior architect and I've been doing it for 13 years now. Started quite young. So I graduated high school at 17. By 20 years old, I'd finished my degree. I was in the workforce. So I was a young, female navigating a very male-dominated industry. So around builders and developers and architects and all of that. So I had to find my feet and kind of get a thicker skin very quickly. But because I loved the industry and I started to realize how capped everyone was, especially in the design scene, I started to see people who would kind of, get a job post-grad and then 10 years later they're in the same company doing more of the same thing. And they might have an associate position, but that doesn't really mean much. So I was on this mission, and especially because I had a lot of people, because I started so young in the industry and I started kind of being exposed to big developments and big projects. I had a lot of, men predominantly on job sites and stuff who would kind of sometimes not subtly and sometimes kind of just insinuate it was almost just like the, sit down and be quiet kind of vibe. Like you don't really know what you're talking about. So I was just on this mission to make sure I knew what I was talking about. So I started to just accept bigger, more challenging roles that were coming my way. I was putting myself out there more in the space of, 10 years prior to me starting my business. I think I moved around about 7 times. And it was, a lot of feedback, a lot of pushback of going, what are you doing? It makes you look bad. It makes you look unstable. Your resume doesn't look great. But for me, it was a matter of no one position could give me everything that I wanted. I needed to take things from different roles. And that's kind of molded me into kind of the well-rounded designer that I am now. So, working on things from a very, very young age, like, at 25 years old, I was able to go to Shanghai and review joinery over there. I designed the first co-living space in Australia, which went on to win a Good Design Australia award. I went on to design showrooms for Good Guys and Freedom and do the TV shows that came with it. So The Block, Reno Rumble. I then went on, before I started my business, I was working with the manufacturing team for Crown Casino, the new one in Barangaroo. So no one company would actually have given me the opportunity to do all of that, and working in factories with joiners and being able to see how things were built, because I was on, I just really wanted to know how things were put together so that I knew that then made me a better designer, because then I now design with buildability in mind. So kind of in the reverse, I think about how it's going to be built first and then I draw it accordingly. Whereas a lot of designers that don't have that experience and the backing don't have that foresight. So that kind of gave me that confidence that I needed over the years to be able to step on site or step in a meeting and deal with, the execs of, your big Lend-Leases and your big companies that they might initially come at you with that, what does she know? And then you come back with this knowledge or these problem solving skills and these, how-tos. And then it kind of, you gain that respect. And that was really, I think, being so young my whole life compared to everybody. I don't know if it was that conditioning that it's almost like gave me this drive to go. I was young to everybody when I was, growing up. So I was always told what to do, never taken seriously. Then I got really young into an industry that people have been in for like 50 years. I'm dealing with, men and women 3 times my age and trying to tell them what to do. It didn't sit quite right with me. And I thought to myself, it was almost like I was regressing back to that feeling of being told what to do. But I was put in managerial roles quite young. So by 25 years old, I was managing teams of 10, 15 people. So I had to step into that role. It wasn't a matter of, going into a shell and going, oh, it's okay, you can do what you want. It was, I had to kind of back myself. But in order to do that properly, I needed to learn. And that's why I grew the way I did. And I guess all of that together is kind of what ended up backing me to start a business, because I, went through a very, very good career, had fantastic positions, great managers, bad managers, everything was a lesson though. And then had fantastic experiences. Like I said, the traveling, traveled interstate, internationally, learnt so much. And then come March 2020, when everybody, the country went into lockdown and the whole world went into lockdown, I actually went through a divorce. I separated. So I was also married at 25, separated by 29. So my 20s for me was a very, very big decade of a lot of lessons in many ways, professionally, personally. So not only is, are we trying to navigate a pandemic now? Nobody knows what to do. Jobs were unstable. Nobody kind of knew what was coming next. You got a flu and all of a sudden you had COVID. Like it was so uncertain. And I don't think any of us have really lived in times like that. But at the same time, I'm in courts, fighting my ex-husband. And it was just such a confusing time for me. So it was really character building to have to kind of just step into my own power and go, well, you have to figure this out. There is no way around it. Like, I was working 2 jobs at the time. I was doing side jobs. This was before I started my business. I was doing side works and working full time for the Crown at the time as well, just to pay my legal bills, just to pay rent, keep a roof over my head. I had great support, but, my ex-husband took everything from me. So we were in courts for, a year and a half, and I lost everything. So everything I'd built over a 10-year period, I ended up starting from scratch again. And so, that takes its hit, it takes a toll on you mentally as well, emotionally. I'm so programmed to just kind of go, oh, well, moving on, next thing. And I think I hit that wall where I was like, I have to actually deal with this, because if I don't, my body's just going to shut down on me. Like I was at the point where I couldn't push myself anymore. So I started, joining meditation groups, and I started looking at all these different outlets to kind of get myself out of the fight or flight and survival mode that I had been put in. And so that ended around July 21. And shortly after that, actually overlapping with that, I went to partner up with somebody to start a studio. That person, unfortunately, practically, mirrored my ex-husband in terms of personality. So it was almost like I was getting another lesson from the universe. Saying, I don't think you've quite learnt your lesson yet. Take another one. But I had to, because I had seen the red flags and I had just dealt with that kind of character, it's almost like that is what pushed me over the edge to start my own, because I thought to myself, you know what, enough's enough. Enough's enough answering to people. Enough's enough constantly being told you don't know and trying to be controlled. And, this is my time now. If I can do it, if I can build something for somebody else, if I can get myself through, a divorce during lockdown on my own, if I can build projects and all that for other people, I can bring all of that collective knowledge and confidence together, and I can do it for myself. And so, with zero in the bank, I think it was like December 22. December 21, I just kind of, I registered my business name. I thought I'm going to start a design studio. And that was it within 3 months, because I had to do it all myself. I couldn't afford to outsource anything. I built my own branding. I built my own website. I started tapping into my old network. My dining table at home in a 1-bedroom apartment was my studio. So I had samples everywhere. And I just started. I started doing entire houses for like $2-3 grand, because I was like, I literally just need to pay my bills right now. Like it wasn't even about, because I didn't know how to price jobs properly. I didn't know how to I'd never been in that position before. I only, you work for other people. You get given a job. You're like, here you go do it. You've got this many hours. You don't have to invoice. You don't have to market. You don't have to do sales. So all of a sudden, I learned very quickly that I can do my trade really well, but I had no idea about business, nothing whatsoever. So then I started joining networking groups, and then I started, getting mentors, and I was spending more than I was making, and I didn't know how I was making it work. But you just kind of, looking back at it now, it was like it was one big blur. Like if I had to pinpoint how I got through certain stages, I was like, you just do, like you figure it out. You know what I mean? Like it's, but I guess my faith is very strong. It always has been. And because of that, I've always just had this underlying knowing that things will work out one way or another, even if I can't see it and if I don't know how. And so I just kind of kept going. And now I've got, a beautiful little studio in Sans Souci in Sydney. And in the last year alone, I've won national design awards. I've been a co-author in a book. I won the Business Elites 40 under 40. So much has happened just in this last year alone. I've been published in, the Local Project, which is one of the biggest design publications in Australia. And again, you think to yourself, you're like, oh, little old me, I'm just doing this. I'm just like, you feel like you're just one person going, how can I kind of be recognized like that? But sometimes I have to kind of bring myself back and go, no, you did that. You built this, you did it from nothing. You built it. You know what you're talking about. Just keep going. You know what I mean? Like it's so easy to just be humbled in especially in industry like design and construction, because there are so many massive conglomerates and companies and, architecture studios and design studios with 50, 100 people working them. And you're in your head, it's so easy to just go, I don't compete. But every now and then you get a little win and it kind of keeps pushing you along. So that's, and obviously, like you mentioned earlier about the honeymoon, I was very, very fortunate, while I was actually going through my divorce, to meet my now husband, who has completely changed everything in my life, has been that support and that backbone that I needed. And I think without that support that I never had, I maybe wouldn't have had the confidence to start my own thing and to actually put everything on the line and just go, you know what, I'm going to throw it all in. I could lose it all. But, if it wasn't for him kind of holding down the fort while I just started experimenting, I don't know if I'd be able to be here. So I'm very fortunate although, at one point my life felt like it was just falling apart around me overnight. We're talking, that all started from 2020 and we're only in 2024. So it's a very, very jam-packed 4 years. But, it's looking up from here. Like everything's been going great. So.
Fantastic. I love the story. I really appreciate it. I think anybody listening to this, it's hard not to resonate to components of it, because there's little aspects of it that will mean something different to different people at different stages in their lives. There is a sense of achievement I can tell in your tone of voice, and how you also got a bit more excited as the story went on as well. But and you have achieved and you're doing very well. I'd like to think that that's just the beginning of great things for you, by the sounds of it. So everything's brought you to this place to thread the needle, give yourself half a year off on holiday, and come back reloaded, and then let's see where I can take this deck of hand, this deck of cards, if you like, and what I can build from there. That's what I'd be thinking for you. Is it? So I just want to pull back a little bit. I'm curious, because you're very staunch on your upbringing. Okay, so and it is different. So there's a generational gap. But it's traditional upbringing. It was strict, and you was a people pleaser. Okay, and you were controlled. Okay, so you had this conditioning through your impressionable years. Okay, which then led into an early stage career, which did what it did. Do you feel that if your upbringing was different, a little bit more normalized, okay, all right, so there's a year or two's gap between you, you're the middle child, whatever, that's all, that is what it is, that maybe a different career would have paved its way for you?
I don't know if the career would have changed. I've wanted to be in design since I was in year 6. I was working part-time in a design studio during school holidays when I was in year 6. I just knew very early on I was always very creative, very creative, very musical as well. I've sung played instruments, I've sung and danced, and I think that was just always built into me from young. I think what would have changed if my upbringing was a little bit different, like there are a lot of big positives from being brought up in an upbringing like that, and it forced me, one, to grow up a lot quicker. So I was always a lot more mature than other people my age, so I pushed through, and I achieved a lot more younger. I was buying property by the age of 23 when my friends were just out partying. So although I built and I've lost, I've built. That's that's, I guess, the thing that I hold on to. I've built and lost and have an entire lifetime worth of some people's experiences in 10 years before I was 30. So that kind of maturity that I got came from having older siblings, came from having older parents. That sense of work ethic and drive came from having migrant parents, coming here with nothing and building a life for us. And my mum was a full-time working mum my entire life, and that generation usually weren't. That generation usually had the stay-at-home mums. We never experienced that. I had a mum holding, down the house, raising the kids and working full-time my entire life. So that gave me an example of, oh, well, you can do it all. So I'm very, very grateful for the upbringing. Like we're close as a family, even our extended family with our cousins. We got the opportunity to go to, even though I'm going now for my honeymoon, this is my 8th time in Greece, because it draws you, because I was brought up with that generation of parent. They kept us very close to our roots. They kept taking us home, and I can read, write, speak, dance. And so it instilled different things into me. Now, what it would have been like if I'd grown up with siblings closer to me, I don't know, because I didn't have that. I actually don't know. I remember my sister and my brother fighting like cats and dogs because they were 4 years apart. And they, you can't talk to my friends and you can't talk to my friends. But I never had that. Like by the time I was 3 years old, my sister was 18. My brother was 15. I was always the one that was dropped off at home, and all the cousins would go out afterwards because I was too little to go in there. So maybe that, that is what created my independence, to kind of figure it out for myself. So I am very grateful for the way it all, the only thing I think that the conditioning, which I almost had to, unlearn afterwards, because I realized that it was as a result of my upbringing, was I had this constant need to prove to people that I was a big girl, right? Yeah. This constant need to prove that I know what I'm talking about, know what I'm doing. And I have a feeling that's probably why I got married so young. That's probably why I put up with what I did so young, because I saw a very traditional, mum and dad. I saw what my mum put up with. I saw where my dad was. I saw the way that their dynamic was. And although it may have been normal for that generation, there were so many things right and so many things wrong. And I saw it as normal. And so I ended up kind of marrying someone very similar to my father, but in a modern day. And it doesn't work that way because, I was a career woman. I was trying to grow and I was trying to balance everything. But that old school conditioning made me stay there longer, because I was like, maybe this is just what it's like. Maybe, I made a lot of excuses, but I also wanted to prove a point that by being married, I'm an adult now. You have to treat me differently. You have to talk to me. So the only thing is, I wish I kind of spent my 20s a little bit more carefree than what I had. Maybe I would have let loose a little bit more. But I'm proud of what I did in that time.
I think so. Yeah. I think rightly so. And listen, I resonate with a few points as well, because COVID for myself, it caused me a lot of problems. It caused me a divorce as well. All my family in the UK, so I was literally on my own. Couldn't leave the house and wondering where the next dollar sign was coming from whilst dealing with emotional trauma. But you do. They're here to challenge us and test us. You're quite right. I think the universe sends us lessons to learn from, and if we don't learn, we get sent the same one again and again until we do. Yeah. And it takes different shapes and forms. Obviously, you're picking milestones there. They're there daily. They really are. These things are there around us. Right, I need to stop doing it. I need to change my habits. I need to change my outcomes. So I resonate with much of what you said. The other thing which I think resonated with myself, and I'm always a bit careful if there's a bit of a trend with this, but when you're facing adversity in the workplace, obviously my business or recruitment, we do business coaching, all this sort of stuff as well. Okay. But there's so many situations where someone's on the back foot. It could be whether they're disabled, it could be whether they're from overseas, it could be their gender, etc., etc. It goes on. Okay. And if you don't tick all those boxes, that is the norm for that, then you automatically face adversity. Okay. Now, adversity tends to put a lot of people off. it also, for those who take it on, gives a lot of excuses.
Mm.
Okay. Or you can choose, well, if I'm going back a step, if I'm one step behind everybody else just because I don't tick their groups, I need to be doing 2 steps to their one to catch up and overtake. So essentially what that means is we need to work twice as hard and twice as smart, okay, to do it. And it looks like you've rolled your sleeves up, okay, brilliant. Oh, my beer challenge accepted. Okay. And that's wonderful. And I love that in any form there. But I do see it, unfortunately, a lot where people will open that wound a bit more and make it worse than it is, rather than doing what you've just shown works.
Yeah, well, I think exactly what you're saying there, right? Which is a lot of people get hit with challenges. It is really up to you how you take them and whether or not you learn from them or whether or not you use it as justification for everything else that you do or you don't do. You know, a lot of people do kind of let things like that derail them. And I've seen other people go through a lot less than what I have in the time and just can't get themselves out of it. I've always been a silver lining kind of person. That always seems to be my motto. There is always a lesson in everything that happens. And when I was younger, I kind of, you know, even kind of pre the last couple of years when I've really kind of grown into the person I am, even before that, I always thought, you know, there must be a reason for this, must be a reason for this. But it would still kind of overtake me, that feeling of, why am I going through this? You know, why is it's not fair? It's not. Whereas now I've really accepted the fact that even while I'm in the heart of the storm, that it's okay. Like I go through something and I could be pulling my hair out, I could be confused, I could be whatever it is. And I go to them, nah, God would not have put this in my path for no reason. I either have to learn something from it or something's going to come from this. I have to, and I found that keeping that mindset is the only thing that has kept me going to the next thing and the next thing without it letting me kind of just crumble, because it's so easy to just, once you start to unravel, it's really hard because negative energy is so much more potent than positive. And the problem is once that voice starts in your head, unless you kind of shut it up, it just keeps feeding itself. So it's so much easier to, I guess, you know, get sucked into that negativity than it is to pull yourself out of it. So I try now really hard to not even let myself get to that point, not even let myself question things that have happened or things that have come my way. And I'm finding it a lot with the newer generation now. Unfortunately, I don't know who's going to be listening to this, but I find that the younger generation now is a little bit more entitled. And it is a little bit, I find it really hard to deal with some of them, in the sense that they want everything on a silver platter. And when one thing doesn't go their way, they're so fragile. And I don't know if that's coming from, you know, parents that are trying to really protect their kids and not actually letting them deal with stuff, or whether it's just coming from this lack of no society. You can't say no, you can't do this, you can't upset someone, you can't. And it's really, I'm a bit worried about that. So I guess when I get back from my holiday, I've already started another arm to my business. So obviously the design studio is the prominent arm at the moment, because that's what I've been doing for 13 years. But I've got the Elite Interior Design Academy. And the academy is essentially not to teach people how to design, because there's 1,000,001 courses out there teaching how to do that. It's teaching them how to navigate the industry. It's something that doesn't exist in Australia at the moment. And it is something that a lot of people, after they get their piece of paper, could really benefit from. Because I remember what it feels like to work so hard in this kind of, you know, university education bubble with these fake projects and these fake budgets and these fake bosses. And then you go out into the real world and then you're like, oh, but nobody's hiring me because I don't have experience. Oh, but I've been given this opportunity, I don't know what to do. Or, you know, I've designed something, I think it's amazing, but my boss hates it. So there's so many things that I've learned the hard way that I've pulled myself out of, that I want to create an academy around how to teach the next generation of designers how to navigate the industry and become the best that they can be, and almost harden them up. And not, you know, harden them up to the point where it's like, don't be so fragile. Don't take things so personally. Here's how you network with people. Here's how you take feedback. Here's how you can put yourself out there and get good opportunities. So But it takes me having to go through all of that and my mindset around it to actually get even the idea, to even be open to the idea of creating an academy to help the next generation benefit from that. So that's my goal. That's my vision.
Okay, I like that. I like the goal and vision, and I actually think there's some alignment to some of the things that I'm doing. So I'll probably speak to you about that, obviously, when you're ready to do so. The entitlement, and we've done a bit of work in as well. We did some talks on entitlement, which is quite interesting. And the generational one is a bit of an easy target because you are quite right. I observe the same thing as well. But if retrospect, if we look, all the generations above us have said the same things about the ones above us and the ones above them. And it's basically an indicator that we're getting old or something. So there's more to it. And in how entitled looks like it is really changed face really with technology and what we get and what we're fed. We're all actually far more entitled than we like to think we are. Just because someone's more entitled than us, doesn't mean we're not entitled. And there's the transactional entitlement, what we talk about, so the trade-off. Okay, and that alludes to what you were talking about, where, well, actually I want it on a silver platter, so you're putting nothing in, I want everything out. It doesn't work like that. Okay. But what you remember as well with the component which is generational is the ones where we're saying, okay, there is a difference, and you're quite right, it does appear to be a difference. They're not tough enough, they're expecting everything for nothing, blah, blah, blah. Okay. They're the more impressionable age group. So they're the ones that truly reflect how society is today that we're all a part of.
Yeah.
The difference is our belief system is we've inherited the ones from the generation before and the generation before that, So we're all experiencing it, all affects us, but then it's like whoever's on the TV is their idol. It's really straightforward. So they're really just an indicator of the world we've built.
No, you're 100% right. And I see it too. Like I even hear things that my parents say to me, like it's, again, another generation of, we came here with nothing, not even knowing the language, not having any money, not having anything, not having family. You guys have all your family here. You were educated here. Anything you need, we're here for you. So in their eyes, yes, we do look entitled. It's like, we've put you through good education. You know the language here. You have every opportunity in the world because we came here to create that for you, right? And I get that, and we're very, very grateful for that. What I'm finding with the next generation, and I think it's just a matter of us adapting to the new way of life as well, is that there are so many options out there now. And there are so many ways to make money. And there's so many, it's not about physical trades anymore. It's not about putting pen to paper. It's not about getting on site with a tool. The internet now is crazy, right? AI, it's become a whole different generation. So I'm starting to kind of understand that, like, by having older siblings, right? I've got my sister who's got a 16-year-old daughter and a 15-year-old son. So now they're at the ages of that kind of, I see my nephew and he's constantly in front of the computer and all of that. And you're just like, oh, get off the computer, and you guys are lazy and you don't. Well, they're actually learning what the next generation needs to know to be able to be relevant. Because at the end of the day, all of those jobs are going to be that we've been trained as being, hardworking, you have to be on the tools, that's all going to be swapped out by, AI and robotics and all of that. So we need to kind of keep moving with times, and we need to adapt our businesses and our roles and open up that understanding and that acceptance of, okay, they're not lazy. They're just seeing it differently. They're not out there on the tools to physically show you that they're working hard. That's not, they could be building programs on a computer, but you're looking at it as though they're not playing computer games. It's a whole different way. It's funny because it's like it's like my parents' generation looking at me with a smartphone going, you guys are walking around with computers all the time. Put that thing down. It's the same difference. Every generation, like you said, they see us because they didn't grow up in that time. They grew up pre-internet, pre-mobiles, pre all of that. We walk around with, I remember the times of, I had a Nokia. And the most I could do on it was play Snake, and now it's like we have a whole computer in our pockets constantly. it's going to be, my kids' generation is going to be the fact where they're probably going to have microchips in them and they're going to be able to scan. It's we have to, as scary as it is, we have to kind of accept the evolution and go with it. And which also then comes back to us as business owners to be able to adapt, because there's a lot of kind of older generation business owners who refuse to change the way they do things.
Yeah.
For that reason, they can't see past what they've always done. So I think that is a responsibility that lies with us too. Instead of just pointing fingers, we have to adapt to.
I remember this quote when I was doing sociology as part of my degree back in UK. Excuse me. I can't remember who it was. It's some British general, some famous British general, not that famous that I can remember their name, but they were slammed in the print media back in the day, post World War II. When he turned around and then he said, you can imagine it in his pompous accent, he can't beat a bloody good war. Okay. And it sounds horrendous because millions of people just died. Okay?
Yeah.
And so that's insensitive, isn't it? Even then, Yeah. But his point was extremely valid and he backed himself and he won over people on his thing. And he said, well, look at it. We've come back. Everybody's appreciating what they're eating, their relationships, their surroundings, having a roof over their head, having their safety, all the things that make up a decent moral fabric to a healthy society. We've stripped it back to, and it's back to normal again. Yeah. And I can't help but feel there's a little bit of history going to repeat itself there. It's warmongering here, but it may also be good for the generations. Let's just take a whole load of this stuff away.
Yeah.
And let's see where we end up after. And I think a bit that's has something there. Anyway, I can ramble on, not as much as you. You talk a lot more than me. That's a backwards compliment, I think. But so moving forwards, someone likes what your story, your journey, what you do for business. They want to ask you questions and want to reach out to you. How would they get in contact with you?
Well, I've got all my socials as well. So I've got my Spiroula J official Instagram page that anyone can contact me through. And I've got my FOS Collective, foscollective.com.au is my studio website, which at the moment is starting to have hints of the academy as well. So as that builds, they might kind of separate, but right now it's under the one umbrella. And I've also got my email address and the info address, which they can contact me through the website as well, through the contact us page. And if anyone wants to know any more about my story or any of the kind of achievements, accolades, any of that, I've got that on there as well. So it shows a little bit more about, my experience, what I've done, and I guess, just my track record, I guess, over the years.
Yeah, no, I love it. I really appreciate that. I'm pretty sure people will contact you. This channel is actually growing really quickly. So by the time we get to publish you, there'll be more people there, and everyone. You'd be telling me to take this down. Stop it. I don't want any more contact.
Oh no, please. When you're growing a business, the more the better.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, lovely speaking with you. I hope you have a brilliant honeymoon year. It keeps extending this, doesn't it? And I really appreciate it.
I'm not back until Christmas, so I'm just going to have to speak to my husband and change the ticket. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching this episode. I hope that you did enjoy it, had lots of takeaways from it. As before, please subscribe below so you can keep on top of any new releases we have. And also, if you would like to have your story told, just reach out with me and I'd love to give you that platform. My best email address is tom@purplepatchconsulting.com. Thank you.